So for question number one, I thought it was interesting how both Esther and George both got people to write their letters for them. So I get that they both can't write, but I thought that having different people write each letter kind of made it seem like they were trying to act like different people in their letters. And I thought it was interesting how the character who writes their letters makes it seem like that Esther or George is that person, and makes like their personality traits kind of translate to Esther and George. And I think it kind of showed how their marriage really wasn't ever going to work out with them both lying right off the start from their letters. So for question number two, I said that the two values that were represented the most in the play were intimacy and gender expectations. So for intimacy, I said that the play revolves around intimacy. Esther creates intimate apparel for people. Mrs. Van Buren wants to buy the apparel to try and please her husband. And finally, Mame is a sex worker and she just tries to get intimate with men. So all the women characters in the play seem to want intimacy, but in the end, none of them really get it. So, and this can be seen with Esther losing the money to George, and her dream fantasy of having a man is ruined. Miss Van Buren's dream of intimacy with her husband and like having a kid is ruined by her husband going to Europe. Even though she's happy about that, she still has the dream with having her kids is ruined. And Mame's intimacy is ruined because she finally thinks she has a man who will like treat her right and show her all the things, but it ends up being George, and her fantasy is ruined. And then for the second value, I think gender expectations play a huge role in this play. So the men in the play seem concerned with money over love, which can be seen with George stealing the money from Esther, and with Mr. Marks trying to just continue his business rather than trying to make a move on Esther, even though they both clearly show that they have some kind of feelings for one another. For the females, they're kind of expected to show that to keep the men happy and do whatever they say, and this can be seen with Mrs. Dickinson giving Esther the advice to keep her husband happy and like have sex with him whenever he so pleases to, which is kind of not really the way that women should be catering to their husbands. For question number three, so I looked up the crazy quilt because I thought it was something way different than just it being a normal quilt. So it ended up being a quilt that's just embroidered and from scraps and fabrics. However, in the context of the play, the quilt represents Esther's dreams and how she had all the labor to get the money and how her dream was ruined by George taking it. For question four, I said that the play reinforces the African American experience. So although slavery was over, people still had biases against people of color, and they thought of them as beneath them. And this can be seen with Mrs. Van Buren in Act 1, Scene 5. Esther asks to go to the opera, and Mrs. Van Buren kind of laughs and says that she can't go because like she's not allowed to. And she said that her friends would make fun of her if they ever found out that she was writing love letters to a colored man. For question five, I said that stereotypes definitely do exist, and I think they come from people with narrow minds. So these people with narrow minds kind of refuse to open their minds up and listen to what others have to say, and they kind of just cause stereotypes to keep going because they believe what a person's like based on their appearance rather than what the person's like on the inside. And then my two questions was how did Mame not know that George was the songbird? And why was Esther so trusting of George with the money when she knew that George had been sleeping with Mame?